So good evening. We're letting people into the virtual door. As you enter, if you could drop your name in the chat and tell us what your favorite vegetable was that you grew this year. That would be nice to share. Again, we are recording this meeting and we'd like you to remain muted while we're doing our presentations. People are trickling in here. Lots of familiar faces and new faces I see.
All right.
All right, people are drop your name in the chat and tell us what your favorite thing was to grow this year. I want to start this meeting by saying thank you to our hardworking, amazing board members. And I would like to introduce them to you tonight. We have Audrey Morris, David Sachs, Emily Landsman, Becky Halby, Katie Drew, and Ann Brigada, and Aisha Salazar will hopefully pop in. She has a baby that keeps her pretty busy in the evenings, so we expect her to stop in at some point. Our theme tonight is Gardens Grow Community, and as you all know, the gardens grow more than vegetables. They build a sense of community, offer a gathering place, supply nutritious food, provide an opportunity for instruction and skill building, and offer a space for healing. Tonight, you'll hear garden stories that we hope will make you smile, say wow, and will inspire you. And now Anne will go over the schedule for this evening.
Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our, our ambitious evening. We have a lot planned for our agenda. Excuse my voice, please. From 7 to 7:15, we're going to take care of business, amending bylaws, electing board members. And then we'll begin with the FOUA 2021 year in review. And we're going to quickly cover the achievements and the poundage collected at Plot Against Hunger, Highland Urban Garden. And then we'll talk school gardens with a video highlight appeal for more volunteer support of APS schools across the country. We're going to do all that before 7:30 when we introduce Libby Garvey and Matt Ferranti for county board remarks. And their remarks bring us closer to our special guest, Duron Chavis, who are very excited to welcome this evening all the way from Richmond, Virginia. We'll follow that with a time for question and answer and hear some stories before we present the Golden Radish Award, a nod to cultivating community, growing community for the Arlington garden that's made tremendous contributions to food security and urban agriculture this year. So I'll pass the mic on for our next speaker. Thanks all for joining.
Thanks, Anne. Thank you all for joining. And yeah, we have heard from so many of you, and we're thrilled that you're joining us this evening. You know, for so many of you, urban agriculture means so many different things. And last year, we did a little word cloud, and we asked you what it meant to you, and that really helped guide us this year as we shape the work of this year. As we move through this evening, we hope you hear your thought of what urban agriculture means, and that you can feel that the work that's being accomplished is reflected, hopefully towards the end we will be able to hear from some more stories, and really we're excited to have our guest speakers, Matt and Libby, and of course Duron. But of course, before we can have some fun, we got to get to the work first. We got to get through some of the business up front. So we're going to turn it over to Audrey, who will lead us through some of the changes and things that we got to get through tonight.
Thank you, David. Since FOUA started in March of 2015, we've grown a lot, we've evolved a lot, and our bylaws, we hope you will agree, will benefit from likewise growing and changing. So we propose bylaws that have 4 major changes. The first is to allow 3 two-year terms. Currently, it's only 2 two-year terms for the board of directors. And next, we want to just define an executive committee, which would be the 4 top officers, because our board is getting larger and we need to be more nimble in being able to make certain decisions when needed. Also, we were asking to be able to, I'm sorry, my screen got blocked. Allow the board to amend bylaws, and then also we're adding a non-discrimination clause, which is very important to us as an organization. Thank you.
So I'm going to launch a poll here, and so people can take vote. I also dropped in the chat a link to the bylaws, amended bylaws, and which was in the email, the reminder email that went out to you earlier or late this afternoon. It looks like okay, there it is. I was trying to find looks like we have about 46% participating. So if you haven't voted, please do. And then I'm going to end the poll here in just one moment.
Everyone here can vote.
Yep. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share results. Yay, we amended the bylaws. Thank you, everyone.
That's great.
Oops, I'm sorry, is the poll still sharing?
Yes, I see the poll.
You have to close it because it comes up with the percentages. So you can close it, and then because there's a delay, it takes a minute.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. It seems to, oh, there we go. Now it's gone.
Well, and I was muted. I was talking on, and I was muted the whole time. So with our bylaw changes approved, we can now proceed with re-electing some current board members and electing our new ones. First, I want to give a shout out to Aisha Salazar. I'm not sure if she's joined us tonight, but she is not seeking re-election this year to the board. And as Robin mentioned, that new baby probably has a lot to do with that. Aisha wants to stay involved in some capacity, so we'll certainly see her around, and maybe with baby Joaquin. So thank you, Aisha, for many years in service with the FOUA board.
Thank you, Aisha.
Now, the board members who are up for a third two-year term are Robin Broder, our current president and Plot Against Hunger gardener. She gardens at Tuckahoe Elementary and in her own front yard. Audrey Morris, past president, current treasurer, and the main gardener at First Presbyterian's Plot Garden. David Sachs, our current secretary, resident farmer, and all around man about town. Oh, no, come on. Man about town who helps at the Highland Urban Garden, Walter Reed, and other plot gardens. The board member who is up for her second two-year term is Emily Landsman, our videographer extraordinaire, clever crafter, and bunny raiser, who helped with the Tuckahoe Plot Garden. You should see a poll come up on your screen, and everybody present can cast a vote.
to be clear, I'm not allowed to vote for myself, right?
And I should mention that our outgoing board member, Aisha Salazar, has put a little message in the chat thanking everyone. She's enjoyed working with all of us so much. So thank you, Aisha.
All right, I'm going to end the poll. Yay, we've been reelected.
All right, all are elected. Thank you much, Emily. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our prospective new board members.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks everyone for re-electing the current board. So we put out a request for new board members several weeks ago. We actually got a lot of interest. We were very pleased with that. And these are the 3 candidates. I'm going to read some bios as submitted by those candidates. So first we have Elizabeth Colleton. Elizabeth brings over 30 years of nonprofit experience in environmental and civic participation issues. She has worked as a policy analyst, grassroots organizer, philanthropist, and fundraiser on issues including solid waste management, source reduction, brownfield redevelopment, voter participation, ocean conservation, and public media. Her interests center around climate change impacts on urban environments, the establishment and dissemination of best practices for sustainability across our neighborhoods, and the potential of FOUA to model an impactful legacy of environmental stewardship for all who live, learn, and work in Arlington. She's a liaison to the Washington Liberty Victory Garden Club, and soon to be an Extension Master Gardener. Elizabeth and her family have lived in Arlington since 1991. Okay, our next candidate is Kristin Conrad, who many of you may know. Kirsten has been with the Virginia Cooperative Extension in Arlington since September of 2007, serving residents of both Arlington County and the city of Alexandria. Her agriculture natural program area trains and supports the 230 active member Extension Master Gardener program. And she serves as a sponsor and advisor to the Arlington Regional Master Naturalist chapter, which she helped start here in 2008. A longtime supporter of urban agriculture education efforts in Arlington, she is also a former board member of the American Community Garden Association. Kirsten brings her skills as an educator and writer and certified pesticide safety educator, along with a desire to support FOUA's mission to facilitate a new paradigm: a carrot in every pot, broccoli in every backyard, and pak choi in every patio approach to Arlington's recreational, zoning, building, and land use management policies. And our third candidate is Paula Burdette. Paula has a passion to grow high nutrient food in the most sustainable manner possible and an interest in supporting the community, particularly those with food insecurity, diseases caused by nutrient deficiency, and people with specific nutrient needs like youth and older adults. With that in mind, Paula and her family began Roots and Shoots Microgreens as an indoor farm here in Arlington in 2021. Being on the board of Friends of Urban Agriculture gives her the opportunity to help the community provide the landscape from policy to individual knowledge to space for locally grown foods. Paula hopes that more people will learn about the healing benefits of being outdoors and cultivating and eating locally grown produce. So those are our 3 candidates, and now we would like you to vote on them. We're going to launch poll number 3. Okay. I guess we can all vote on this as well. All right. And Robin, I'll let you let us know when you're ready to close that. You're muted. Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
I ended the poll.
Okay. All right. And congratulations to Elizabeth, Kirsten, and Paula, our new FOUA board members.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Now moving right along, I'm going to hand it over to Becky Helby, and Becky will start our 2021 review.
Thank you, Emily. One of the highlights of this second pandemic year has been the plot against hunger. initiative with its two main activities of number one, encouraging everyone to garden and donate fresh produce to area food pantries, and number two, gleaning. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with that term, gleaning is basically picking produce from area farms with permission. The harvested produce from gleaning is also delivered to area food pantries and kitchens as soon as possible. As you may remember, last year, Plot Against Hunger, I call it Plot, its founding agency turned away from Plot and FOUA stepped in to keep Plot going. Very quickly, FOUA and others started the bagging program at Rock Spring Church, as well as supporting Plot's gleaning work. This year, FOUA formalized that relationship with the Plot Against Hunger, and the results have been amazing. The bagging program at Rock Spring Church continued for a second year with 60 gardens donating 9,107.5 pounds of produce. That's more than 1 ton over last year's total. The monetary value of all that produce is roughly $15,500. Volunteers packaged that produce and drivers quickly delivered it to various area food pantries and kitchens after each bagging event. We wanted to get it to clients when it was at its freshest. Total volunteer hours for this bagging event is estimated to be about 580 hours with a monetary value of more than $16,500. But gleaning, that's the real story here, folks. Gleaning had an absolutely incredible year. In just a couple dozen forays, 23 to be exact, gleaners picked and delivered 39,646.5 pounds. That's almost 20 tons of food in less than 2 dozen outings. Now, the monetary value of all that gleaned goodness is $67,400, just for you number freaks. I feel like I'm on the Price is Right. All right, quickly, let's give some jazz hands to all the Plot Against Hunger volunteers, gardeners, baggers, drivers, gleaners, and others. You all made this happen. Looking ahead, I want to alert you all to the fact that we're searching for a new space for the bagging program in 2022. If you know of a potential space, please contact anyone on the FOUA board. And also, please mark your calendars. We're getting ready for the 2022 Spring Garden Kickoff, which will be Saturday, March 12th. More details to come, and take it away, Katie.
All right. So I'll be talking about the
so things have changed.
All right. If everybody hasn't been muted, then this is a good time to do it. So I'll be talking about the Highlands Urban Garden, the Hug Garden. And this is one is very dear to my heart because I don't live near it, but I work near it. And I walk through this park every day when I'm at work. And to just see this happening is just amazing to me. But this really came together out of a relationship with the National Landing Bid. And then we linked up with Livability 22202 and some other partners. And these groups were able to provide us funding to put this thing together. And so I really want to say thank you so much to these groups that helped us get this. Now, this started out kind of, this is, I think initially there were victory gardens other places, but we wanted to have something that was a demonstration garden. And we were able to find some marginal space in the Virginia Highlands Park, right next to this fence by the tennis court. And so a lot of volunteers got together. We got mulch from the county. We got these metal rings to make these, the garden plots. There's actually 24 of them. And we all got together, started working on it. We grew some cover crops over the winter because this actually started last year and I came on like in December. So the cover crops are going. And next slide, please, David. And then in the springtime, we actually started, we took the cover crops, we turned them under to add fertilizer. We started building our cement spaces for the water jugs that you have here. And as you can see here, we got our seeds from Marymount. So up there in the top left, we have groups from Marymount Food for Thought Club. And so a real special thanks to Dr. Susan Adelini for hooking us with this. So we got seedlings from there, we got seedlings from David, and we started planting all these wonderful plants. And then we started having neighbors come around. These are people who lived right across the street, some of them, and some of them a little farther out in this area. And they just started working on this. We started harvesting these things. Everybody worked together. We had adults down to little kids working on it. We brought our harvest to different places to donate. And as you can see here, we had 170 square feet, but we ended up getting 380 pounds. That's 618 hours. And that comes up to about $21,000. And this was a fantastic demonstration garden, because the nice thing about being where we were is we would just have people walk by and be curious about what this was. And we were all able to say, oh, well, this is this, and this is a garden here. This is what you do. Would you like to come and see a little bit closer? So neighbors got involved. Groups who came to the park to do other things got involved. And I think the most important thing was we actually got to we've extended this now for the next year. So we're really excited. And I want to just give a special shout out to Carol and Gayla and Renee, if they're on this call, because they really kind of organized this group, and all of the volunteers at HUG to put this together. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, it really was an incredible year at the HUG. Let's turn it over to Anne and hear about the work that was done in school gardens.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hey, fantastic presentations by Plot Against Hunger and HUG. Hats off and hands together for those presentations. Thanks, Becky and Katie. In the spirit of growing school garden communities and cultivating healthy soil to germinate the seeds of the future, we've got a photo here of cover crop seeding at Hoffman Boston. And building school community, that's what FOUA has been doing with school gardens this year. 2021 has been a year of growing community, growing food, growing gardeners, with a focus on equity with outreach to all schools across the county. As I was preparing my words tonight, I was remembering school was closed in the winter of 2021 until really September or August of 2021. Schools were closed and students weren't in the schools. But even while the schools were closed, we had school representatives, PTA members, parents reaching out to us for guidance. And the pivotal question became how to nurture the growing garden interest in their communities, their school communities, and how to achieve a sustainable, community-driven approach to investing in urban agriculture and care for the gardens. Because what happens one year isn't necessarily going to happen the next year without care and thought and commitment. So with sustainability as the focus, growing school garden communities will still be our continued focus for 2022. We started monthly garden coordinator Zoom calls this spring, I believe in May, and we established different themes. We had fabulous speakers at each of the garden coordinator calls, and we're going to do that again this year, but we're going to plan in advance. So we have a 12-month calendar, both with the garden community calls for each month programmed thematically in advance, and with the benefit of having our new board member, Kristin Conrad, as part of our team, we're going to be planning a monthly garden visits so we can create opportunities for hands-on in-person planning to experience, help volunteers experience nurturing a garden. So as part of this equity-focused approach to gardening, the FOUA website has been updated with a how to start a school garden page. So there, David just passed to the new slide. You can go to the website and you can find a tremendous amount of information, not only how to start a school garden, but what are the benefits of school gardening so that teachers and parents and PTA members can present materials to the community and really build the solidarity and build that community critical mass that they need to get a garden off the ground in a sustainable way. We also have tremendous curricular resources that we'll be putting on the website that will be available for before the end of the year, and those will touch on elementary, middle, and high school themes. In the spirit of growing community, we can go to the next slide, David. In the spirit of growing community, we've also been partnering with a lot of different organizations across the county, including Arlington Living Schoolyards Initiative with their new website. This is a screenshot of their new website, which focuses on equitable access to nature in the schoolyard for every Arlington child. And you can see that there are a number of fantastic Arlington organizations that are involved in this effort to promote outdoor education, urban agriculture, but just enjoyment and being in nature and the species of nature and the biodiversity and living in Arlington in a biophilic community. So the next slide brings us to a wonderful school youth effort that was led by our own Nate Hankins, who was an intern with FOUA this summer in August. Nate is a Yorktown High School senior this year, and he leads the Yorktown Garden Club. And he made a great presentation linking together a variety of different schools across the county. So we're gonna start the video, but before I sign off, I just wanna say, stay tuned for more garden coordinator monthly calls. Look for our schedule of monthly garden visits for 2022 and volunteer to help with gardens across the APS school system. You won't regret it. Thanks, everybody. It's been a great year. I'm gonna mute so David can start the video.
Hi, my name is Nate. I'm a senior at Yorktown High School, and with the help of other students, I started the Yorktown High School Community Garden. The goal of the garden is to fight food insecurity and help bring awareness to climate change.
In Arlington alone, there were almost 16,000 residents that experienced food insecurity in 2020. And because of the pandemic and lockdown, that is expected to grow 48 to 60%. But the benefits of community gardens do not lie in the produce alone. Urban green space exposure is also linked to decreased community violence, helps fight inequality by giving access to fresh produce to all Arlington residents, reduces anxiety and other mental illnesses, and creates a sense of cohesion and pride within the community. Community gardens also provide a benefit within the schools. Students with classes that take place in a greener setting are shown to have better behavior, emotions, and health. Lastly, it serves as a great teaching resource. School gardens enable teachers to incorporate academic concepts into hands-on experiences.
My name is Phoebe Scheibel, and I am a junior at Wakefield High School. Working in the Wakefield Garden always helps me feel at peace, and it brings me so much joy to see the time, love, and hard work people put into the garden pay off through everything we grow and are then able to donate. All our garden volunteers, Lisa Labella in particular, have done so much for our garden, and I am so appreciative of them for making it such a beautiful space.
Hi, and welcome to the Thomas Jefferson Middle School Garden. We're a wonderful garden run entirely by volunteers and teachers and students from the school. We donate all of our food to AFAC and other associated food pantries, and it's just a great community, man. But we need more volunteers.
Many gardens are having to cut down on the space they already have cultivated due to the lack of volunteers. So these gardens need you. Volunteering requires no real commitment and no experience. You can help schools, community, and the world by giving a small amount of your time.
It's up to you. You can volunteer once a week, once a month, or just once. You can make a difference.
All right. I can't believe I got that to work.
Good job, David.
bear with me here. Geez, here we go. All right. Well, man, thank you, Nate. And I think with that, we wanted to learn some more about what is happening here in Arlington. Robin, do we have county board members in attendance?
Yes, we do. And I'll introduce them. And I think at this point, David, you could stop sharing your screen. So be easy to see who is here. It's wonderful that we have County Board Chair Matt Ferranti with us and County Board Member Libby Garvey. And Matt's going to tell us a little bit about the county's food security task force that Aisha and I have been participating on. And Libby is going to tell us a little bit more about some of the urban ag economic development news in the county. Libby, I understand you need to hop off and go somewhere. So do you want to go first?
No, I don't need to hop off that fast, so I'm going to
Okay.
switch my chair. It's fine.
Okay, all right. To you, Matt.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks, Libby. I will be brief. This is a great opportunity for me just to look back on the work that we've started on food security countywide this year. So in April, we stood up a 28-person food security task force. Robin and Aisha are on it, and we have now Stephanie Hopkins is our county staff person who's leading that effort. We have a couple of subcommittees, but the big picture purpose here is to do a needs assessment of about how many and where and when we see hunger in our community as a whole, in the county as a whole. And so that's needs assessment, and then a food security strategic plan is what will come out over about a 12 to 18 month period. We made some progress, significant progress, but we did start, Nate was entirely right in that video. About 6.7% of the county is at risk of hunger, defined as not knowing where your next meal will come from or having to eat the same meal again and again and again. Think ramen noodles repeatedly. So that's about 15,000, almost 16,000 people in 4,000 households. We started this task force in April and May. We met every 2 weeks. As we're trying to assess the need, we've developed a needs assessment tool and worked with the Urban Institute, which probably many, but not all will know is a think tank that works on hunger, poverty related issues. And we are doing a survey that's focused really on 4 census tracts in 22203 and 22204, where the largest number of individuals who are hungry, who are at risk of hunger, live. So that survey is ongoing. We expect in February to have the full results. We're also doing some interviews to follow up on the survey to understand hunger in those 4 census tracts that are really in areas where there's the greatest need. If you think of it, it's the neighborhood between near Arlington Mill Community Center and up towards Carlin Springs Elementary is one area. There's also Buckingham, but there are a couple of other parts of the county that really are most at risk of hunger. So we'll do the needs assessment, and then we have 4 subcommittees, and Robin is on metrics and data, at least last I checked, and Aisha has been on info gathering. There's also a communication and collaboration subcommittee and a subcommittee that's focused sort of on the research questions related to the study. But we think we need a benchmark, and that's what this study will provide to kind of get us a more specific understanding of where there's hunger and where we need to address it. It's been a good start. We have much more to do, and really the strategic plan that's at the end of it needs to be informed by a needs assessment, but also that's going to be the key as we continue to work on hunger. And so pleased to be with you again, and grateful for the work that FOUA does, contributing to it. And it's great to see the plot against hunger. And I'm mindful of all the work that's gone in to the individual gardens, as well as at Rock Spring Church and throughout. So appreciate the chance to share just a little bit about the Food Security Task Force. We'll continue our work into next year, get the results in February of the needs assessment, and work towards a strategic plan on hunger, I would guess by the end of next year. So happy holidays to everyone, and I'll let back to you, Robin, and perhaps over to Libby, mindful of the chance to join you and share the air.
Yeah, you can take it away, Libby.
That's fine. Thank you, Matt. It's great to hear about what's going on with food security, and I loved all of the introductory stuff you all did. It just makes my heart feel good, which I'll go into in a minute. Why? Because Matt, I'm going off script, and I'm not exactly putting you on the spot, but listening to your report about the 2 zip codes, and then mindful of what we did last night with Barcroft Apartments and the building of a community and the complete redo. What a great place for community gardens, huh? I think so.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I believe the developer is really interested in this sort of thing. So go to it, FOUA. I'm just kind of like, take it away. All right. That's really exciting. And I'll report a little bit. I think Lindsay Smith is here from COG, which I didn't realize that she was. I know she visits sometimes. Lindsay, you're here. Yes. It's great to see you. And I actually reported, she asked me to do a little update on what we were doing in Arlington to the regional group, the farm committee. And you guys featured big time. I did a lot of talking about FOUA, which as you should. So I'm going to just kind of zip through a couple of things. I was asked to talk a little bit about, economic development and what we're doing. And it really is cool what's going on. I think you're probably aware of Fresh Impact Farms, which got a grant from the governor. We went in and did some things, and they really kind of pivoted during the, they're up on Langston Boulevard, but they really kind of pivoted during the pandemic from being one of these sort of boutique indoor places growing special herbs and, things that are very expensive in restaurants. And they were doing great. And then the pandemic hit, and overnight their sales went down by 100%. And they had nothing. And then they pivoted to doing just some regular stuff, lettuces and spinach and things that people, parsley and things that regular people buy, and people were supporting them. And now they're kind of doing a hybrid, which is really exciting to see that move forward. And they got this grant from the governor and from us, and they're investing also $137,000 and $500 to create 6 new jobs while they do this pivoting. And their jobs in urban agriculture here, in Arlington, which is way cool, supplying restaurants and individual customers. And they're going to be doing model and education. Maybe FOUA wants to take a little field trip someday and take a look at it if you haven't already. And we, excuse me, because I'm getting over a cold. I apologize for all my throat clearing. Arlington County recently partnered with George Mason University School of Business to look at a review of the economic impacts and propose some ways to support this new business, really, of urban agriculture. As I understand, they're looking at ways of supporting it. And there is another group, I think, going to open in a warehouse on 4 Mile Run that'll be larger than Fresh Impact. So it's continuing to grow here as a real commercial sector. And it came up to us, and actually, I'm going to take just a tiny bit of credit because I was a little pleased with myself. We did a relook at the Columbia Pike plan and the zoning along the Pike, and allowing more flexibility for different kinds of things to happen there. There are a number of things that were added, but urban agriculture wasn't there in the draft when it came forward. And so I said, can we add urban agriculture? And we did. So it's now you can do urban agriculture along the Pike, and that's a very new thing. So I'm really excited about that. And I also wanted to talk about, I think I was asked to talk a little bit about farmers markets. As you know, we had two new ones this year. And so now we've got 10 in Arlington, and it's one for every 23,000 residents. And frankly, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm going to guess it's pretty good. And the oldest market here, at Courthouse, was on track to have its best year ever this year, with about 2 million in sales. And well, farmers markets are not really quite the same as urban agriculture. It kind of is. And I think that's just really exciting to see how well that's doing. It's getting people used to buying food that's kind of natural and looking like where it came. It's kind of clear where it came from. It's not all in plastic and things like that. And I think I think it reinforces the urban agriculture that you guys are doing, which is great. And I think I'll just finish up kind of why I probably have told you, I probably say this every time I talk to this group. Apologies, I'm probably repetitive, but I helped start one of the very first school gardens in Abington School back in 1992. And that garden got started and a lot was going on, and we really did some cool stuff with it. And then it kind of withered on the vine, if we want to keep the metaphors going. Because you had some teachers who were interested and they left, I left, people grow and change, and it didn't really keep going. And now it's back going again. And of course, meanwhile, school gardens kind of took seed, if you will, in a number of places. And now it sounds like a tremendous number of schools have got these gardens, and it's great. And I can see that you all are supporting it. And while I was listening to your report on school gardens, I was thinking, yes, that gets a bit at the problem of having it just be about somebody, in the PTA who's got a lot of energy, and a teacher or two that likes to do it, and maybe some families, and then they grow on and the whole thing just peters out. If you've got a consistent support from an organization like FOUA, I think that will help keep it going. I also think that timing is everything. And probably back in 1992, people weren't quite ready to think about gardening a whole lot and urban gardens. And I think it's just an idea whose time has come, and it's about time, and it fits in with the climate change and so many things that we're doing. And you guys are just right here when we need you, which is fantastic. The gleaning was huge. And let me just check my understanding. This was the first year you guys have done gleaning. Is that right? Not the first year. Okay. All right. Not the first year. I was really impressed by what you're getting, and I think it's a great idea. I appreciate you, saying what gleaning was. If anybody's on this call who's not familiar with gleaning, I don't want to be religious or anything, but there's this lovely story. I mean, it goes way back. So the story of Ruth in the Old Testament is about a woman out in the fields gleaning, and it explains about it. Anyway, it's a great little story in the Bible, Old Testament. It's a romance. It's kind of fun. It's one of the original Cinderella stories, I think, actually. And then the hug garden, which is one of my favorites, just in part because of the partnership, with the parks, with the tutu livability, with the neighborhood, and with you all. Anyway, I'm really excited about what you do all the time. I love to be here. Thank you. I'm sorry I can't stay on too long and have to go back to this other meeting that I was on. But thank you so much. And Lindsay will remember I finished up my speech or little presentation thing at COG I used a lot of pictures. And one of the fun things, one of the reasons I like to be involved in this is the pictures. They're pictures of food and green things and flowers and plants, and everybody just feels good. You can just sense the blood pressure going down looking at the beautiful pictures. So thank you all for what you do. I think you're the wave of the future. I think your time is now. And look forward to maybe some cooperation, a little of the stuff going on with Barcroft. Let me know how I can help. And I'm sure Matt feels the same way. So thank you so very much.
Wow. Matt and Libby, thank you as always. Strong support. So we got to do, folks. We got to get leaders in the position that are fighting for issues that matter, right? And on the subject of issues that matter, we've had an incredible year, and it was with some reflection through October that I was fortunate enough to hear a presentation from a young man in Richmond who frankly blew me away. And we've invited him this evening to speak. And let's see if I can do this. Well, Duron, are you on the call? Are you queued up? We can share. We can share screen.
How you doing? Good. Yes, I'm here.
Well, thank you, Duron. Thank you for joining. Why don't you take it away?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for inviting me to this space. I'm happy to be here. It's very exciting to see so many enthusiastic folks ready to engage with these conversations. Let me see what I got. Today, well, the folks asked me to share a little bit about the work that I do in community. I want to just, before I even get into my remarks, just give you a little bit of a background about me and myself and my work. It's a very interesting space to be in tonight because I've been doing a lot of work around racial equity in Black and brown communities. And this is a pretty white audience. I just want to just acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of white folks in the room, right? Okay. And then Arlington is a pretty white county, right? It's predominantly white. There's like, what, 10% Black folks in Arlington, Virginia. And like, according to the census data that I was pulling up earlier today, how ironic that the largest concentration of poverty is in the African-American community in Arlington, Virginia, right? Which I just think is just amazing and helps me kind of land into why or how do we start doing racial equity work explicitly in our urban ag envisionings, right? Speaking specifically to the Friends of Urban Ag in Arlington, how do we engage in that work? So just to start, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, which is of course the capital of Virginia. We live in Virginia, which to just make it plain, this is kind of ground zero for racial inequity in this country, right? It's in Virginia where we have the initial dispossession of indigenous people, right? Virginia is the first colony, right? And then it's also where the first 20 and something odd Africans are brought into Fort Comfort, right? And sold as chattel, right? So this is where it all kind of like starts for this American experiment, right? For this great democracy that we call the United States. This is where things went really well for if you had a lot less melanin, and went really bad for you if you had more, okay? I'm in what used to be the capital of the Confederacy, Richmond, Virginia, where the Confederate, the last battle for the Confederacy was fought, where Black soldiers basically were the ones that marched into Richmond and ended the Civil War. But I grew up on the south side of Richmond, Virginia, which if anyone knows about the New Deal, like many other major metropolitan cities, it was the south side of Richmond and the east end of Richmond that were areas that were denied access to financing and mortgages on the basis of race. You know, this happened everywhere across the country, right? So just, continuing the exclusion and marginalization that this nation was founded on. I grew up in neighborhoods that were excluded from that funding and that financing. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized that I found myself in an area that was being called a food desert, right? Or area that didn't have access to a grocery store. I could walk from my house about 5 miles to get to a grocery store, but there's another part of my city that's in the more affluent, predominantly white area in the west end of Richmond, Virginia, where I could have parked my car on one block and walked to 4 different grocery stores on each of the corners, right? And I'm explaining that just to kind of like give you context of my remarks tonight, and just, hopefully inspire the Friends of Urban Ag in Arlington to begin to think about why, as an organization, their leadership and those that are in support are predominantly white, and the food is going to the folks that are most poor and the most impacted are predominantly Black, right? That's a problem, I feel. And I think there's something that we need to change. And it's not just, endemic in this organization. It's all across the country where we have well-meaning folks who aspire to, be of service and benevolence unto others. But there's some systemic issues that we haven't unpacked and we haven't dealt with that will allow us to get to the root causes of why these inequities exist in the first place. But before we get into all that, Tonight, I just kind of like put together some slides just to talk about why this stuff is important, or how do we get to a place where we're ready to even begin to have a conversation about how we do this work around racial equity. So first, before I begin, I just want to throw this slide up, right? We all like to say we live in a land of equality, right? But do we live in a land of equity is the question that I want to pose to folks. So the top of the slide is great because it shows that equality looks like everybody gets a bike, right? So you might be in a wheelchair, you get the same bike as the person that has super long back. Apparently his back is too long and for his legs is too long for this bike, or you're too short for the bike, right? You know, it's all the same bike, no, irrespective of your height or ability or leg length, you all get the same bike. That's equality. But what is equity? Let me look at the bottom of the slide, the bottom image. Bottom image is a lot more, it makes a lot more sense, right? Like, yeah, everybody gets a bike, but I need a specific type of bike based off of my ability, right? I need a specific type of bike based off of my height. I need a specific type of bike based off of my leg length, right? So if we can transpose these ideas or this idea into the space of race and class and gender in our world and our social interactions, then we can start to think about, okay, well, why is racial equity important in terms of this work? You know, like I found out earlier today, you know, that Arlington has only got like 10% Black folks. It's like, well, that's a really interesting stat, but being that they're 10% of the population, it's fascinating that they will be the highest in poverty in Arlington, right? So there appears to be a little bit of a different need for the communities of color in Arlington than the rest of the folks that are in Arlington County. So when we start to do equity work, that's when we start to identify what are the specific social conditions and realities that communities face that either impede their ability to arrive at self-determination or make it more conducive to them being able to arrive at solutions for their own betterment and empowerment. And I think for this work around urban agriculture, it's really super important for us to be thinking about not how we give away more food. And I don't, this is my philosophical ethos around this work of urban ag. You know, the Bible tells us that you could teach a man to fish, right? You could give a man to fish or you could teach a man to fish. And for a lot of us that live inside of this urban food access space, we seem to really love giving people fish, which is a challenge because we know how hard it is to consistently, i.e. find the volunteers to continuously grow food to give to people, right? People might do it for a season. They might get hype and say, I'm gonna come out this weekend and come help you plant the tomatoes and plant the broccoli or whatever, but they might not be back the next week, right? Or the week after that. So that tends to create, you know, an inconsistency of how much produce you could give away. But what if we flip that on its head? What does it look like for us to train people in community to build their capacity so they're not waiting for you to show up to drop off a basket of groceries? They have their own farms in their own communities, and they're growing their food for themselves without need of you coming in to drop a speck of anything off. That's a more humanizing reality that I feel like we all need to be embracing. So how do we get to this space? How do we help you all get to that space? It's important to recognize that not being racist isn't enough. I bet if I ask everybody in this room, are you racist? Everybody in the room be like, no, I'm not racist. Hell no, no. It's those guys over there that are doing the racist things. They're the ones that are supporting, you know, the policies that are causing problems for people of color. They're the ones over there, not me. It's somebody else. And I like to say that not being racist is insufficient, right? It's cool to be able to be in a room and talk about how you heard this horrible story from your neighbor, or you got this cousin that's just so bigoted and you just don't know how they still have these ideas. Like, that's all an amazing conversation that I've heard time and time again. But I like to think that there's another level of being, and that's being anti-racist, right? So when you hear that cousin or that coworker say that bigoted thing, right? What do you do about it? You just kind of like, I'm gonna disassociate myself, right? And it's fine. It's okay to feel discomforted. You know what I mean? When you hear folks say things that are discriminatory or racially insensitive. But I think it's also another thing to think about, there being policies that run concomitant to bigoted ideas, right? I think it's important to say, it's important for me to say that I find that some of the folks that say they're not racist often have the most exclusive organizations. It's fascinating. It's like everybody in the room is not racist, but there are no Black and brown people in this room. Like, I just don't understand how that world coexists, right? If you're not racist, how come there's nobody of color in equal proportions in the leadership of the organization, right? I mean, this is not saying that you're, ready to go ride with the tiki torch at the Charlottesville rally, right? But you might still got some work to do, my good friend, right? You know what I mean? Like, who is when you got married, did you have any Black people at your wedding, right? Is that how much of a Black friend, how many Black friends do you really have? Are they invited to the family reunion? You know what I mean? It's usually not the case when folks say that type of stuff. So the first thing is thinking, okay, well, everybody's racist. We live in a society that's created these ideas that Black and brown people are at the bottom of a hierarchy of human value that has been manifest in the laws and historical patterns of this country across, since it was founded. How can you not be racist? That's the question you should ask yourself. Like, how can I not be racist? There's no way. I saw Cowboys and Indians when I grew up. I was rooting for the Cowboys when I should have been rooting for the Indians, right? So these are the nuances of the thing. But, if we can get past the idea of thinking about there's a binary of me being a good person because I'm not racist, and there's those folks over there, they're the bad people because they are racist, and start to do some deep diving internally and think about what racist ideas, what behaviors we're bringing to this space, what ideas we have in detox from, then we can start to work towards racial equity in our community. Once you get to that point and you're on that journey, recognize that communities of color need allies that are anti-racist, that are actively detoxing from these ideas, but that are also aware of their privilege, right? There are certain benefits that come from being white in this country. The number one, access to wealth and capital. In Arlington, Virginia, just to go back to the stats, it's only 10% Black people there, and they make up 13% of the poverty. So the question that you must ask yourself is, if the circle of poverty is concentrated in the Black community in Arlington, then who's got the wealth, and where are those circles of relationships, and who has access to them more? And if we can think about anti-racism as a way of redistributing power into communities, then we can imagine that our action of just, I'm not racist, once we take it up a level, say, hey, look, I'm trying to dismantle these systems that are perpetuating concentrated poverty in these communities that manifest in folks not having access to healthy food, then maybe we can work with the community members in these areas, because I'm positive that not only is the poverty concentrated in certain areas in Arlington, but that there are also concentrated by way of racial identity, right? So how do we work with those communities explicitly to get them access to the knowledge, skills, training, and capital that they need in order to not need anybody to drop any food off on them, that they can grow their own food on their own terms. And then also like this idea of intersectionality. And I'm gonna bring this home in a few seconds. So, you know, that there's many different types of there's the idea of me, I'm a Black man, right? There are Black women, right? I am from a poor community, right? My family didn't have money. My mother, you know, was a graduate, was a dropout, right? You know, but I, you know, by virtue of my wherewithal, went to college, and now I'm, you know, moderately middle class, right? But there's different identities in that space. One, I'm a man. Two, I'm Black, and then I'm moderately middle class. But there's other Black people that are, you know, homosexual, transgender, that are poor. They might be Muslim, Christian, African traditionalist, and in their identity. They might not be Christian, they might be Christian. But these intersections of identity, right, are important. And there's a space where sometimes when we're in these organizations, it's like we want a certain type of minority, not necessarily, we don't want anybody that's too radical looking, or, you know, they won't, you know, they're Black and Muslim, I don't know, you know, it might not be a good idea. They're transgender and Black. Whew, that's a lot for our organization to handle. And they're not Christian. How are we going to deal with that? How is that going to look? How are they going to fit into the puzzle? Like, the idea of detoxing from not being racist is going to require us to also be inclusive in terms of our definition of what Blackness is, or what our definition of other communities are, right? It's moving beyond these, okay, well, I got one Black person and that's good. No, like, we need a full representation of what's going on in the community, the different types of marginalizations that exist, okay? And then the third thing is, like, often when we talk about racial equity, people get stuck. They say, oh man, you know, it's enough. You know, we talk about interpersonal racism, right? Somebody calls somebody an N-word, you know, somebody got discriminated against, or we walk past the Black person that was the labor, you know, or the janitor, or the sanitation worker, and we were like, we didn't speak to that guy, but I'm gonna speak to the person that's in the suit. That's the guy that I'm talking to. But then there's another level of racism that's more de jure. Like, back in the day, you know, we know segregation is over technically, but today we know our schools are just as segregated as they were during Brown versus the Board of Education. We know our neighborhoods are just as segregated as they were prior to the Fair Housing Act, right? But we also know that there's impacts that have lived on as a result of redlining and urban renewal in Black communities, right? That the same maps that I can show, this is a map of Richmond, Virginia from 1954, I think. This is the Homeowners Loan Corporation. This is the map of redlining in my city. I'm sure that there's one of Arlington. But in this map, it shows the east end of the city, the north side and the south side. Those are the red areas. Those are the areas where the homeowners loan or the Federal Housing Administration denied Black people for loans. But then I got little dots on here, right? So these little dots are from 2016. And these are all the vacant, dilapidated, and abandoned properties according to the city. And you can see their concentration are in the same areas that were redlined back in the 50s. So that we're living with these scars of institutional racism, systemic racism from the 1950s, even to today. The same maps will show you where the lack of healthy food is. It'll show you who doesn't have access to a park. They'll show you who has higher heat indexes in the summer So it's about how do we undo these things and understand that there's racism doesn't stay the same, it evolves, and that what we saw back in the 50s might not be applicable today, but we still dealing with the results. And then number 5, it's important for all of us to be courageous and brave, but it's mostly important for white folks to feel like, hey, it's okay to do this work and not know, how it's gonna go. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to say that you got to have all the answers, but it's more important for you to understand that, hey, look, if you feel like it's important to know that you can make a difference. Like a lot of times I run into folks that say, hey, this is such a huge problem. There's nothing I can do about it. Yes, it is. You as an individual do have power, right? You have influence. You have the capacity to organize. You got people at the table as a board of a nonprofit organization that's raising money to do amazing work. How many of y'all on the board? It's like what, 6, 8 of y'all? So one person connected to another person, then another person showed up, and then all of a sudden you had 6, 8 people and you started a nonprofit. So if you could recognize that one person or 2 people had an idea that you can make a difference. And I know it's scary because a lot of us, we watch, I pay attention. I'm a Black person, I see it. I know that there's racist folks in your family, there's racist people on your job and in your social circles, and you like, I don't want to be the person to get outcasted by them. You know what I mean? They might not be ultra racist, but they got some ideas, and I don't, that's my family though. I ain't trying to be, pushed out from my family, but we don't want you to be pushed out from your family either, but we want you to help your family evolve, right? And, or you might feel guilty by all this stuff. Like, yeah, maybe your family had slaves, maybe the plantation that your family owned is still in your family's land, in your family's name, and it's been passed down generation to generation. Or maybe you got, inheritance from generations of families that played a role in the slave trade, or were discriminatory in their policies, or you know what I mean. They were not the best character, in the historical arc of this country, right? You ain't really proud of them, but and you feel guilty about that, and you want to do something about it, but you're stuck in the guilt place. And it's okay to feel ashamed about that stuff, because we're looking at it in hindsight, and 2020 is always better. But you got better vision than 2020. But this is the deal: you can't stay stuck in your guilt. You got to figure out how to transform that shame into productive activity that again redistributes wealth, capital, resources to the communities that were exploited in generations past and are continued to be exploited even into this day. But you got to start with you, baby. You can't do nothing. What Michael Jackson say? I'm starting with the man in the mirror, right? I'm willing to make a change, right? So it's all about you. Like, what are you bringing to the space? And this is probably the most important thing that I had to say today, that each one of us, we have the capacity to make change in our community, but we can't do nothing until we change ourselves, right? So how are we showing up authentically? How are we showing up with honesty, transparency? How are we building trust with others, right? Those are some of the key ideas, right? How are we honoring generations to come? How are we using the most, what Jesus teach us? The most important commandment, what he say? He said, love others as you do yourself. Treat others how you would treat yourself, right? So if you, will want, somebody to teach you how to grow vegetables versus coming to drop vegetables off on you every week, then you should be teaching people how to grow their own vegetables instead of coming to drop vegetables off. I mean, this is a fascinating kind of phenomenon. I see it all across the country, like, that there's a desire to help, right? But how would you want to be helped, right? If you were in a position of poverty or extreme need, Would you want to be in a position where you were dependent on somebody else coming into your neighborhood every week to make sure you had the things that you need? Or would you want your situation to grow so you were in control of how, your world looked? Would you want somebody to make those decisions for you? Or would you want to have the power to transform the community, your situation on your own terms? These are the type of questions we got to ask ourselves as we do this work, as we brace ourselves for looking at this stuff from a racial equity lens. And then here, this is the thing, and I'm a land this plane right here. You got to become an ally. You got to start where you're at, right? So if your work is urban ag, let's learn as much as you can about the historical inequities that have occurred in agriculture, right? If your work is philanthropy, right? Learn everything you can learn about the historical inequities that have arisen in the world of philanthropy, right? If you're a city government, if you're a city planner, learn how the built environment has been designed to exclude people on the basis of their ability, on the basis of race, on the basis of gender and class. Like how does your transportation run, right? You know what I mean? Whose community was redlined? How hot is it in the community? Like, look at it from a lens of race. Start where your work is and radiate outward. And this is the most important piece of all of this. Remember that all of these spaces intersect, okay? Philanthropy and urban ag work in synchronicity. So who's getting funded, right? When we look at those Guide Star profiles in our city, we find out the nonprofits in our city. Let's look at the 990s. Who's getting what? When we look at the nonprofit that's led by the organization of color, and we compare it to the white-led organization that's doing the same work as that Black organization, who's getting the most money? Huh? And when we get the answers to those questions, we got to be willing to say, okay, well, how do we get this right? How do we make it so that it's equitable, where everybody's getting what they need, right? And it's not just one group taking all of the resources and leaving everybody else out in the dust to starve and scramble and do something for free to try to figure out how to make that the impact that they're trying to make in community. So, the number 8, the last thing is, after you've done that work, after you've done that self-analysis on a personal level and on an organizational level, then you can start to think about, okay, well, let's adopt a racial equity practice. What is our work going to look like moving forward? How are we going to diversify our board, right? How are we going to develop collaborations with organizations of color, right? How are we going to start to develop a shared vision in a collaborative form with other nonprofits in our region and in our area to ensure that the work that we're doing is building community capacity and lifting the community out of a dependency model? How do we get to radical solutions that make our organizations obsolete? Like, what are we doing to make sure that the communities that we're serving don't need us, right? And that's a hard question to ask for folks that are in this nonprofit space. But I ask you, if the work that you're doing is not being done so that you're obsolete, what are you really doing? Right? What are you really doing? What are you really doing? And if you can sit there and answer that question and not feel ashamed for how your outcomes are basically perpetuating your existence, you gotta do some deeper analysis as to why you're in this work. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to achieve and cultivate justice so that communities can have the thriving reality that they deserve, not what we think they deserve. They need to have what they feel like they need and what they want, not just what we feel like we got time to volunteer and give them. So I'm gonna close with that and say, I implore all organizations across, the gambit of gender, race, class, to start to look at the work that they're doing through a racial equity lens. How do we meet communities where they are and build their capacity so that they don't need us at all? What is it that we're gonna have to do internally in order to be able to show up in that work authentically, honestly, and courageously? What is it gonna take? I hope to see y'all again, and I look forward to doing some more training with you all. Perhaps we can even dig into how we can work with your organization to guide you on some sort of a strategy to get to that place. But I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to share, and I hope any of my remarks tonight were able to hit someone close to home and make us think about what we're doing and how we're advancing racial justice in our community. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Awesome stuff. Duron, thank you so much. Let's get some hands up thanking him for his work. I feel like, Duron, I'm sorry. Let me apologize. I didn't introduce you right. I really should have taken the time to explain the work that you've done in Richmond. You are more than just a figure and a spokesperson. You are more than just someone to make us think. You walk the walk and talk the talk in Richmond. The stuff that you've done down there is really amazing. Guys, a week ago, I think Duron posted this video to his YouTube channel. I'm going to put that in the chat. It's for his work on radical agriculture. This video is awesome. It really goes into sort of the why of kind of what he's doing, and it takes it a little bit out of the sort of step-by-step analysis that he's given us tonight, and really shows some powerful stuff that he's been achieving. But Duron, boy, I knew you were going to hit. I knew you were going to hit it, and I knew you were going to put the fire on it, and I knew you could, because look what happened to the chat. It got real quiet.
Oh, wow.
It got real quiet in the chat, and I think we were all taking a moment to absorb what you're saying. But you're absolutely right. If we look at the reflection of what we see in our leadership and in the community of amazing volunteers that are doing awesome work, there is a need for us to bring in new audiences and to engage members of our community here in Arlington in new ways. So thank you. Thank you so much for helping us see that. We have time for a couple questions. If anybody had a question, you can drop it in the chat or unmute. Robin, I don't know how you wanted to handle it, but
folks, you can raise your hand or just take yourself off mute, or probably raising your hand would be good. But I just wanted to say a few things. Duron, I really appreciate you spending time with us this evening. Friends of Urban Ag, we're a young organization just getting started, and I think this is the right time for us to really address all the different issues that you were talking about tonight as we try and build up our organization and our projects and our programs. And it's number 5 is really important, is to be courageous and brave, because this is not easy work. And so I really appreciate you coming here. Just for the audience, my daughter has an urban farm in Richmond. And when I told her that Duron was going to speak tonight, she was just like, that, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you had mentioned when we spoke about an upcoming series of workshops you were doing with Virginia Tech. And
yeah.
I don't know if you want to share that with us, and I can put some information in the chat.
I can send the flyer over to you. I'll send it to you on the email. The registration hasn't gone live yet, but yeah, we're doing a series of workshops, a virtual learning 5-part series that's going to run from January to May. And it's called Beyond Nice Racism Towards Institutional Change in the Food System. Myself and my team, we run a collaborative called REAL, which is racial equity, the Racial Equity and Agricultural Lab. So myself, and other leaders from Black and brown communities across the state. We'll be leading folks at Virginia Tech and other institutional leaders on a 5-workshop series to kind of guide folks through, okay, well, what's the historical reality about ag, right? How does race and racism, how is that informed not only ag, but land use? We'll be talking about redlining and the New Deal and gentrification and how that's impacting Black and brown communities. And then like the last 2 sessions are really about what folks in their organizations can do to help upset those disparities, right? It's really gonna be an interactive situation, so I hope that folks can come. But it's really for folks that are in institutional positions of influence, right? With the goal for us to land on folks doing policy work, whether it's on a municipal level or a nonprofit organization or even a for-profit business level, to help reshape how things are playing out for Black farmers. I don't know if you all are aware, it's like less than 1% of farmers in this country are Black and brown at this moment, where it used to be, where it used to be way more, but the systemic policies have caused Black farmer land loss. It's a huge issue. Black farmers are almost extinct as a result of systemic inequities and theft, to just put it bluntly, and discrimination. So yeah, we're trying to upend that stuff, and we're working hard to try to change systems to make that stick, make that work stick.
Yeah, it really sounds great. And I'm hoping my schedule allows that I might be able to participate. We'll see. Paula, in the chat, you mentioned a group here in Arlington. Would you, if you mind, if you want to take yourself off mute and tell us a little bit about that, that may be something we should be looking at?
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Challenging Racism is a group that's been around for quite a while. It started by white people, run by white people. Finally, we got someone who is an African-American running she's the director now, and she has made some amazing changes in the way it's run, rather than, it's such a difficult thing saying, well, we need to empower the people that are in the community. Well, that means that we're still giving them something that was ours, rather than, it's just a very difficult cycle to try to figure out. So we really, really needed more people in Challenging Racism who are people of color, and it's growing. So it's amazing. They don't really focus too much on food equity. They're focused on, I wish I could remember the 5 things that we're focused on, but it's like financial equity, which could include food equity. I mean, we talk about food deserts. They're not as prevalent here in Arlington because we're so tiny. You can walk 5 miles and be out of Arlington. So yeah, but I do think that they would be able to give us some direction and connect us with more people like Duron, who could help us make the change that we're talking about right now, that I think that we're looking to make this change.
Absolutely, that's right. Well, again, thank you. Yeah, this isn't easy, but it's the right thing to do, and it's work that's important. And if FOUA is going to evolve and grow, it's work we have to do. Again, I'm going to try and share the screen again here briefly, if I can get back to this. I definitely didn't introduce you right, and I apologize for that. But guys, Duron is amazing, and
I didn't do my usual eye candy stuff. But thank you for putting some of this stuff on a video. So yeah, so this just as a FYI, I farm. Like that's what I do. Like every day I wake up and I hit the ground We develop spaces. We train people on how to grow food. We train people on Southern foodways. We, deal with climate resiliency. That's our work, right? We give away raised beds. We build community gardens, urban farms. You know what I mean? So yeah, I should have probably said that, but
That's
exactly.
okay. We're here now. We're here now. And guys, definitely look Duron up. Follow his work. If you want an authentic voice, if you want to see someone that's not just talking about it, but is doing it. They've got some handles down at the bottom, at Duron Chavis, at Happily Natural Day.
Oh yeah. That's my Instagram. If you want to follow me on social media, everything is Duron Chavis, everything is Duron Chavis. And once you hit that, it'll lead you to everything else, whether it's our nonprofit work or any of the spaces that we've been developing.
Right. And just to reiterate, I mean, you want to talk about theft? Well, I took this slide from you. I screen grabbed your step 6 here, which coincidentally and strangely doesn't match the steps you gave us, but hey, you know what? It's all right.
Oh yeah. So I gave 2. So I wanted to can we get back? If we come back and y'all invite me back, then we'll get into the steps of the 6 steps for infusing racial equity into your work. But yeah, somebody stole our tractor.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, how's that going? Did you?
Yeah, this is the perfect slide for that. So we bought a tractor. I was like, my back was like, thank you. You've been doing all this stuff wrong. You should have had a tractor years ago. And then we left the tractor at one of our sites, and somebody stole it. So it was horrible feeling. And but it's right in alignment with our framework, right? It's like if something jacked up happens, you implement a strategy, right? Track the results, assess the progress, and then revise the strategy. So we bought a tractor. Tractor was kicking ass and really an asset for us. Somebody stole it. So now we had to revise. Revise how we implement the tractor. So we got the money for it. We raised the money to get another one. So that means that now that we get the next one, we're gonna be putting one of those Apple AirTags on it. We got a trailer hitch that we're gonna use to move it every time we utilize it. So it's like, you just go back and hit it again, man. It just comes with the territory. It's always an evolving, cycle to try to refine this stuff.
And in many ways, I think what you joining us tonight, I think, is somewhere on this circle. And we hope that this work, again, this is not just a token, because it's trendy to discuss this sort of stuff, that we are able to look back on tonight, a year from now, and be able to recognize how we have moved forward and we've taken and developed steps that are leading to something that really is true to our mission statement, to develop that fair and equitable food system for all Arlingtonians. And it just as you shared your story here, it's tough. It's tough to sort of absorb that when we do look in the room and we look to the left and the right, and we are looking back on the year, and frankly, looking back on this presentation and saying, well, what did we achieve this year? And a lot of it was through that frame of donation and through the incredible work of the volunteers, that did grow this food. But I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us. And I think it's our collective hope that by taking this work on, we will become a better organization, but we will be more effective. It's just, how can we do our job better? But there are so many stories, and we, earlier as we were organized, we asked folks to submit stories, and we heard from so many of you. It's been so empowering to hear that so many of you are growing, that you are taking action and doing this for your children, for your communities, for your church, for your for what your food pantry, for your school. And we wanted to, and we're kind of a little tight on time, so we're not going to be able to share all of them, but you know, as we now move on, I think, Emily, would you be able to share
David,
some of those stories?
David, let me jump in for a second. It's at 8:30 and that's when we were supposed to end. So
We have
should
time
we-
for two stories, for two quick stories.
Okay.
Maybe three.
All right, everybody,
Yeah,
hang in there
three.
for a few more minutes. We
Okay,
still
so-
have to give out the golden radish.
So this story is from a neighbor from the Penrose neighborhood. So she wrote, "It's taken about 5 years for my permaculture garden and food forest to take shape. But in 2021 was very significant because I harvested my first pawpaws. Pawpaw is a wonderful native tree that produces tasty fruits about the size of a small mango. I was able to share some of the pawpaws with the neighbors, but also some passion fruits. And there was always rosemary to give away to whoever is stopping by. In return, I was gifted some plants, including a hardy orange. I grow slightly unusual things, including goji berries and American groundnuts. I'm slowly learning the botanical names of all the plants, including the edible weeds that inhabit my plot. I look forward to doing more sharing as I produce more, but also sharing what I am learning in the process. I'll be teaching a backyard permaculture workshop through the Arlington Community Learning Program in March. And I think that's really important, that here's someone who's passing on their knowledge and furthering community by helping others with what they've already learned. And we have one more quick story from another Arlingtonian. Gardens make a house a home. A few years ago, I rented an apartment in the home of an Alexandria resident who allowed me to install a vegetable garden in part of their front yard, the only place there was sun. She told me that they had not had a garden like this in 40 years since her father was alive and living with them. We grew squash, tomatoes, and peppers, lettuce, flowers, and more mixed into the landscaping. When her adult children visited, they commented that they felt that the garden made the house seem so much more like a home than it ever had been. It was a wonderful feel-good moment for the gardener too. And for our next story, Becky's going to take our next story.
Yes. One more quick story. It's about a local Plot Against Hunger garden that has been growing produce for 13 years now. It's a huge garden, especially by Arlington standards. And every year, talented volunteers coax at least 1,000 pounds of produce from this garden. Several years ago, the garden planted some fruit trees nearby, and they're now donating that fruit. In most years, this garden produced more than a ton of vegetables, but this year, the garden and orchard and its stalwart volunteers grew a record 3,694 pounds.
Woo.
And again, just to see the monetary aspect of it, that's about $6,300 worth of produce. So what am I talking about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, farmers and gleaners, the recipient of this year's coveted Golden Radish Award is the St. Andrew's Episcopal Church Garden of Hope. And joining us tonight is one of the mainstays of that endeavor, Dave Smith. Welcome, Dave, and congratulations to you and your volunteers. And I know time is short, but will you unmute and give us a few words?
Thank you very much, Becky. And on behalf of the whole St. Andrew's Garden community, we want to thank you for the Golden Radish Award tonight and the wonderful recognition for our 13 years of production at our Garden of Hope. It was originally started by one of our parishioners who was the chief of staff at the Department of Agriculture downtown and was instrumental in starting their Plot for Hunger on the mall, and then organized a group of our parishioners to create that garden. And it's continued to be and develop over the years. And now the volunteers significantly outnumber the number of participants even from the parish, because it's built a community based around the garden, including wonderful partnership with Marymount and their Food for Thought organization under the mentorship of Professor Susan Agalini, and several other churches in the area, along with Arlington Junior League. And over the course of our time, we've donated over 25,000 pounds of produce. And as Becky mentioned, we set a new record this year that we're quite proud of. Clearly, the weather and all those aspects really made it a great year. And finally, I do want to note that our success, we stand on the shoulders of some urban ag giants who have provided incredible support and mentorship for us over the years, including Quinn Lee, Kristin Conrad, and Becky Halby. So thank you all. We accept this beautiful golden radish on behalf of St. Andrews, and thank you again for the recognition and appreciate all the support. And clearly look forward to many more years of trying to grow the vegetables, and as Duron said, teach others how to grow those vegetables and fish for themselves. Over. Thanks.
Thank you, David. And I'm going to turn it over to the other David.
I mean, I'm just blown away. I'm blown away by you guys' productivity. And I think every garden out there, I think we all know about St. Andrews. I think everyone's got St. Andrews in their sights. So like, how do they do it? I'm pretty sure it was the pumpkins and the butternut squash that got you over that 3,000 pounds, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Guys, with that, you know, I'll hand it back to Robin, but thank you so much for joining and for giving us your attention. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us this evening. One thing we wanted to mention is that we are instituting a volunteer management system that Emily's been working hard on, and will help us organize all these different efforts that we've been just doing lots of different sign up geniuses for, which is really frustrating. We want to set up some work groups to help with our board work. So you don't have to be a board member to be on a work group. And the first one that I would like to mention is that we are setting up an equity work group. And to start, you know, figuring out how we weave that into all of our work as we build Friends of Urban Agriculture. And again, the Spring Garden Kickoff is March 12th at the Central Library. And of course, this tis the season. I will be that we need, you know, we're asking for donations. And we are as you know, we are run by a volunteer board of directors. So I do hope if you're able to give, you'll be able to give it, you know, include us in your end of the year giving. And of course, volunteer. We have a lot of people have signed up to volunteer over this past year, and we really, and this is going back to the management system that we're going to set up. We'll be able to respond to them and get them organized a little bit better. There are a lot of people out there who are very interested in doing work in this space with us. But thank you so much for staying with us this evening, and I really appreciated all the resources and comments that people put in the chat. And here's to next time we have one of these, it'll be in person. So thank you so much.
Robin, can you put the link to donate in the chat? Looks like we have a request for that.
Yes, hang on. I just had way too many things open on my
you can actually find it through our website.
Yeah, hang on. Sorry about that. I had too many things open.
Here, this might be. There we go.
Great.
So, and if you don't want to donate online, of course, you can send in a check. Here's some more information there.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. And yeah, let's make 22 something really special, right? I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
That's the last slide. All right, folks. Thanks very much for coming. Have a great evening.